Hello and welcome to another and the final episode of our Commander Legends set review. I was considering very heavily to try to do another part because, well, this is part 3. If you're not aware, this is part 3, green. Multicolored, colorless, and lands. So yes, I was thinking about doing multiple parts because the multicolored, the colorless, and the lands is quite a lot, but I think I'm going to be close to squeezing it all in. I want to keep a lot of these videos to mostly an hour or as much as possible, so that they're not overdrawn and too tedious. So better get into it as quickly as possible as well, so that we can actually get to the cards for today. And as I said, we're starting out with green.
And first up is Kamal, Heart of Crosa, 6 and double green, 5/5. At the beginning of combat on your turn, creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until the end of turn. 1 in a green, until end of turn, target land you control becomes a 1/1 elemental creature with vigilance, indestructible, and haste. Is still land, and he has partner. So Kamal is very strong. He's doing a lot of stuff. If you have some leftover mana and you have no board, you could turn most of your lands into 1/1s that quickly become 4/4s. So you can just quickly take over the game with all of his abilities. Of course, you can't tap all of your lands because you've got to find some lands left untapped to actually activate so that they can actually attack and whatnot, get in there for damage. But just like the value that this gives you, this is a very powerful overrun effect. And once again, this has haste. So the turn that you play it, it comes down, then you go to your combat, and everything gets +3/+3. 6, 7, 8 mana for this 5/5 that gives everything +3/+3. He doesn't get haste, or whatever, so he can't attack unless you got Swiftfoot Boots or whatever, Lightning Greaves, things like that. I don't think he's getting in there, but again, that's not that bad, really. Like, looking at this and you're just like, well, how bad is that? I would give everything else +3/+3. Sure, it's not the most cheap and effective overrun, but it's an overrun in my command zone, and if I'm in mono green or even partnering with green, and it's just so powerful. Like, just even saying, oh, well, it gives you access to green, you get all the ramp in the world. Again, the best ramp in the world. So you just power out a lot of big beating dudes, and just smash people in the face with your big beady dudes. Seems like a plan like the making 1/1s lands into 1/1 creatures isn't that much of a plan. But then when they get +3/+3, when you've had a board wipe and this is the only thing you've got left, or this is the only thing that you could do, sort of, and just like, okay, I'm gonna make all my dudes 1/1s, or as many dudes as 1/1s as I can, and then punch through for the last few points of damage, maybe this turn, or maybe next turn, or whatever. But still, it just gives you something to do if you haven't got anything else to do. So, I don't think you would specifically use it for that strategy unless, again, you're in that position. But again, just having that little bit of an option, I think it makes it a lot better and a lot stronger and a lot more interesting. Reshape the Earth. 6 triple green. Search our library for 10 land cards. Now, that can be any land cards, non-basic included. Put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle the library. So this gets you a lot of lands. This is going to get you a lot of lands. And again, this is all utility lands, I guess, because you want to find lands that would come into the battlefield tapped anyway, so that you can get some, incidental value of lands entering. Like Field of the Dead is probably one of the best lands that you can get. And just, yeah, like there's just a few other lands that maybe you would get if you've got Cabal Coffers and Urborg, maybe, or if you've got any of the other utility lands just in your deck that just happen to be good for you. Just like getting 10 lands out of your deck for 9 mana, you've probably got 10 of your lands out of your deck already, so, you're probably running, 30 to 40 lands, so now you've got, maybe 20 lands at the most left in your deck, so your deck, in terms of lands, is very thin. So, you're just not really going to draw lands very much. So, deck thinning here is a real thing, but again, just giving you 10 landfall triggers just in a landfall deck, late game, this is just going to be ridiculous, but that might be just saying if you happen to have any lands left at this point, because you're just like going to be fetching so many lands, it's just going to be ridiculous. And I've had that situation where I'm like, okay, I'm going to go search for land. Oh, I have none left. Oh dear. So you might only get 5 or 6 out of this. I don't know. I mean, you can get basics if you actually, again, need to. So, just weigh it out. I think like this. I wouldn't count this as a ramp spell at all. I would count this as a finisher style spell. You want to get triggers off of this for your landfall stuff, or for just setting up so that you can basically next turn have 20, 30 mana or whatever it is, and just be like, okay, now I'm just going to go off and win because I've got so much mana. So very, very strong. Apex Devastator, 8 double green, 10/10. No trample, no nothing else, just Cascade 4 times. So Cascade, 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 and Cascade. So you get 4 free things that are CMC 10 or less off of this thing. It's not hard to give this thing trample, to be honest. I've found that it's not that hard, even in limited, it's not that hard, especially when you get 4 free things. And if you're in the Cascade deck, you're probably just going to get more free things, because a lot of the 6-cost things cascade for free with that new Simic legend, and there's a few other things that just happen to have Cascade that are, in lower CMC than this, so you just cascade off of them too. So this just can cascade into a lot of things. So yeah, it's very, very powerful, very strong. Had a little bit of fun playing this, but I think I might move on from playing it. But certainly, in a Cascade deck again, I don't think you run it anywhere else, because the value, yeah, it's cool, but I just don't think it does anything else for any other decks really. Court of Bounty, 2 double green. Enters the battlefield, we become the monarch. At the beginning of our upkeep, we may put a land card from our hand onto the battlefield. If we're the monarch, though, instead we may put a creature or land card from our hand onto the battlefield. Cheating of, land plays, I guess, and cheating of casting things. So this is a ramp spell, essentially. It casts you 1 thing for free if you're the monarch each turn, or it just lets you play an additional land. So, and that's again, I guess, if you've got those lands to play, but still, that's very strong and that's very good and can do you some good stuff. So there's still some amount of saying, well, the monarchy is not that hard to get, but it is hard to easy to lose, I guess. So that's the thing about it. It's easy to lose. So I think you just get this for the one time, value type thing of it introduces the monarch, and you maybe instead you probably just get lands from this, I guess, probably, unless you steal it from somebody and then you can hold it, till your next turn or whatever, until your upkeep, basically. So, but yeah, very good, very powerful, and very green nowadays. I think a lot of stuff's very good, very powerful. Bio Waste Blob. It's 2 and 2 green, or 2 generic and 2 green. Oozes you control get +1/+1 at the beginning of your upkeep. If you control a commander, create a token that's a copy of Bio Waste Blob, and it's a 0/0. So he gives himself +1, or it gives itself +1/+1. So it's a 1/1 by itself. Once you have 2 of these, they're both 2/2s. And since you have a copy of, it's a token that's a copy of Biowaste Blob, so then you get 4, I believe, so then you have 4 4/4s, and then you'll have, 8, right? 8 8/8s, and so on and so on and so on. So it's just going to multiply and multiply and multiply and get bigger, and they're all going to just take over the game very quickly if you don't deal with them. This is very reminiscent of that other card from Ravnica and Mythic. It gives your oozes abilities, and it makes copies of itself. Very strong, very good stuff there, and you can do stuff with it. Dawn Glade Regent, 5 double green elk, 8/8 creature. When it enters the battlefield, we become the monarch. As long as we're the monarch, permanents we control have hexproof. So it's conditional, slightly at least, I would say, to the most part. But it is strong to have this effect I've found in limited. But otherwise, I do find that the effect this late in the game isn't that strong, really. It just doesn't do that much. That's why you don't see much play of the enchantment version guy that does basically the same thing, that gives your things hexproof, makes your opponents' things lose hexproof. And again, this is situational. You've got to be the monarch for that to actually be happening and relevant and whatnot, all that sort of stuff. So, but it is a good body. And, you can give this trample very easily or unblockable. So, it can be good, I guess. Kamal's Will, 3 and a green, instant. Choose one. If we control our commander, we choose both. So I'm gonna have to reread this. Until end of turn, any number of target lands we control become 1/1 elemental creatures with vigilance, indestructible, and haste. They're still lands. Choose target creature you don't control. Each creature you control deals damage equal to its power to that creature. So it's a mass fight spell, or it's a mass create a bunch of lands into creatures for the turn, or for 1/1 creatures. So again, if we've got nothing better to do, getting the 1/1, or if we've got nothing better on our board, rather, getting the 1/1s, and then if we have Cabal or something else, plussing up our lands, giving them, other abilities and whatnot. The ability to punch through, and again, they're indestructible, so that's relevant. I guess, so, just getting this and getting a whole bunch of damage in on our opponents. pretty good or just whatever. And it is an instance, so that is relevant if you happen to go up against somebody and, they're cracking in and they think they've got you, and that it's kind of a fog, I guess. But, like the other side of it, basically being a removal spell, it's okay, I guess, but just I think the flexibility is good, and if you get both modes, I think it's quite good. You're getting a bunch of these 1/1s that are going to do their damage to somebody's creature, and again, you can then say, oh, okay, well, I want to get rid of your 6/6, so I'll turn 6 of my plants or 6 of my lands into elementals, and then kill your thing. So you can sort of scale it to what you want. Magus of the Order. 2 generic and 2 green. 3/3. We sacrifice Magus of the Order. Another creature. Search our library for a green creature card. Put it into the battlefield. Then shuffle our library. So this is a tutor. For something that's basically either going to win us the game or going to give us an insane advantage. Usually, you probably, like a lot of people, will tutor Craterhoof with this, just so that they can press the I win button, basically. So it's very close to sort of natural order in that sense, that it's 4 mana and you sacrifice the thing to go and get a very specific card, and usually that will be the card that says, hey, I win, or your end raise Forerunners, or your combo piece, one of your combo pieces that you might have, or if you can do this twice, I guess you just find both your combo pieces, so it can be like tooth and nail, I guess. But again, you have to sacrifice it, the Magus, and another creature, so I guess you actually have to cast this again somehow from your graveyard, or get it back to your hand, or whatever, to do it again. So, but anyway, Root Weaver Druid, 2 and a green. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent may search their library for up to 3 basic land cards. Each one of those cards is put into the battlefield under our control, and the rest. Is that right? They each put one of those cards into the battlefield, tapped under our control. Yeah, and the rest go into the battlefield under their owner's control, and each player then shuffles their library. So yeah, you're helping other people. So this is a group hug card. But you're also getting a bit of a benefit from this. So, I guess, I don't know, I guess you've got to care about owning your opponent's permanents as well, or being able to utilize those permanents. But I just think, like, 3 mana to give every opponent 2 mana, and then you get 3 mana, essentially. Well, in theory, at least. That's a pretty good deal, like, if I'm gonna sit on the opposite table to this, and I'd probably take 2 lands to give you 1, I guess. That doesn't seem that bad for me, I mean, it is basic lands, but still, like, basic lands are the majority of what your deck is, for the most part, really, and most of what your ramps centered around, so, like, especially in green. But again, just finding those basics and whatnot, finding the cards that you need to continue to play the game and continue to get ahead. I think, like, if you are playing a group hug deck, if you want to throw this in your deck, it's probably pretty good. I don't think you find much other space for it, because I just think, when you're saying, oh, well, I'll get one of each of your lands, yeah, well, so what, unless you've got some really weird deck that actually has green in it, that actually cares about you owning permanents your opponent's controls, I guess. I don't know, but very weird. Sweet Gum Recluse, 4 double green, flash with Cascade and Reach, this spider enters the battlefield, and we can put 3 +1/+1 counters on each of any number of target creatures that entered the battlefield this turn, and it's a 0/3. So when we cascade, if we cascade into another creature, maybe we'll put 3 counters on that creature. But if we don't get any other creatures that are that relevant, maybe we'll put the +1/+1 counters on this. Plus, it's just a flash reach, which is really good. But again, like, the mana cost is a little high, in my opinion. But then again, it has to be a bit high because, again, it's a Cascade card, so you don't want a 2-mana Cascade card. What are you going to Cascade for? Like 0 mana stuff and 1 mana stuff. So I can see this going in Cascade decks. Just Spider Tribal maybe as well. Like, it's just an alright spider, just comes out, surprise blocker, and might eat something maybe that an opponent thought, is not going to get eaten in combat and things like that. Once again saying, oh, well, put the counters on this spider boy, so that's probably alright thing to do. But even if you get another creature that's a bit better, maybe you want to put the counters on that, especially with Death Touch and things like that. But yeah. Next, Kadama of the East Tree, 4 and double green, 6/6 with reach. Every time I look at this card, I go, it has reach. But yes, reach. Whenever a permanent enters the battlefield, if you did not put it into the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent card with equal or lesser converted mana cost from your hand into the battlefield. And it has partner as well. So you play a land, most basic thing that you could do, and then you can play an additional land because it is equal or less CMC as that land. So you basically get double lands here. If you cast a 6 mana card, you can get a 6 mana or less card for free. So this is just absurd value card while it's on the battlefield. I think this will so easily take over the game, so easily get out of control. It really needs to be dealt with very, very quickly, and it needs to be dealt with often because it is just an absolute powerhouse. It does so much. If it's left unchecked, if it's just left out to sit out there, this is one of the things that I don't sometimes like about things, is because it becomes things are too good. It's like no one can have anything anymore because the things that they have are just too good. It's so sad in a way because you want people to be able to play the game. You want to be able to see what people do in the game. You don't just want to be playing removal tribal. That doesn't sound that interesting. And again, it sort of fits into that whole theme of like, well, what is Commander? And again, what is casual about it? And how much removal can you run before it starts becoming just absurd? And again, you've got to actually have your own plan. I don't think you can just be, again, removal tribal and actually, like, win games. You've actually got to have combos or pieces or creatures or what have you that will actually win you the game. You've got to have cards that are like this that will generate mana, will generate value, will generate different things for you, will, do what you want to be doing in your deck. So it's just one of those things. I just am a bit sad about the whole situation, to be honest. But Kadama of the East Tree is certainly amazing. I just think it goes in a lot of decks. It doesn't really have a specific home, but if you're playing like Enchantress, I think it's really good. You just like get free enchantments, more free enchantments. You just cast more enchantments. you just get to draw more cards, you just get to play more enchantments and get more value off of playing enchantments. If you're playing creatures, the same thing. You're just getting more value off of playing your creatures. You're just getting more draw triggers, more enters triggers, more things off of things. If I don't think there's many artifact decks that are in green, but maybe you can pair this with something that actually does care about artifacts, so you could do the same thing there. It's all about permanents entering the battlefield, so maybe you get planeswalkers going, but again, this really doesn't care about planeswalkers, so I guess you've really got to partner this with something that cares about planeswalkers or +1/+1 counters on permanents and whatnot and things like that. So you can find space for this. This is such a good card, and I think again the argument of it dies to removal. Yes, of course it dies to removal, but again, it's so good that if you get one or two things off of it, is it worth it? And that's what you've got to ask yourself. Or how much sometimes will you get off of it, and other times you'll get one or two things off of it, and other times you'll get a hell of a lot off of this because just no one had removal at the time. So I would throw this in your decks that you want to get extra value off, or you want to cheat mana costs and things like that and get extra triggers off of those sorts of permanents that you are playing to draw your cards and whatnot and things like that to get you extra value and get you further ahead in the game, which will obviously lead you to winning the game eventually at some point. Anara, Wolf Lord Familiar, 3 and a green, 4/4. As long as it's your turn, commanders you control have indestructible, and it has partner. Kind of cool, but I don't know. Unless we're playing Wolf Tribal or Beast Tribal or something, or we really care about a commander being indestructible, I don't know. I think this is just draft filler card for the most part. Gilana, Caller of the Wildwood, 2 and a green, 1/2. Tap it to add a green. But when we spend this mana to cast a spell with CMC 6 or greater, we draw a card and it has partner. This is actually pretty good, especially in those Cascade sort of style decks or those big mana decks. Just happening to draw a card when you cast big stuff is pretty good. I mean, you can only do that once per turn or whatever, but still that's pretty good. For what it does, just adding mana as well is pretty good. And if you can find ways to untap this thing, and there are certainly several things that you can find to untap creatures and permanents and things like that. So I think this is actually pretty good. I actually underrated this a little bit, but once I've seen it being played, not every single card in your deck is going to be 6 CMC or greater, but if you build around that, say, well, most of my deck is going to be 6 CMC or greater, or if you happen to just naturally care about that, then I just think you'd throw this in because it's ramp and it's card draw. So, it fits two roles, I think. And again, if you can find ways to untap it, it's really good. But yeah. Halana Kissing Ranger, 3 and a green, 3/4 reach. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, we may pay 2 generic. If we do, then that creature deals damage equal to its power to any target creature and has partner. Kind of cool that we can get a little bit of removal on our creatures so that we can sort of deal with the things that we often find difficult in green, which is removing creatures. That's one of green's weaknesses, but I still don't think this is that amazing because, again, you've got to pay 2 for the effect, and a lot of the big stompy creatures that you want to play are a lot of mana investment. But again, yeah, sure, green's got the ramp, so you might just have to play your things a little slower, which actually is good again for the other decks because the other decks actually have a chance to sort of get in there a little bit more or whatever and show what they can do. But again, then you're on this sort of tempo plan where you're killing the best thing on the board basically most of the time. But I can certainly see space as for it. I think no, it actually deals damage, so it doesn't go in the fight deck. I was about to say it goes in the fight deck, but it doesn't because it just deals damage. Itch Til Technic Salvage Splicer. Terrible, terrible to pronounce. 4 and a green 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, we create a 3/3 colorless golem creature token. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on him and a +1/+1 counter on each golem creature we control. And he has part. So weird golem tribal, and it's another one of these splices that basically buffs golems. Maybe, I don't know. It's kind of just very weird to me, and I don't really get the space for it, but it's just kind of interesting. I guess this is more or less just limited fodder, I would say, in my opinion. But if you really care about golems and you can find another golem commander support that has partner, and you really want to run a bunch of golems that, get all these weird abilities off of all your dudes that care about making golems and making golems better and whatnot, I think you've really got to be in white for that as well. So you have to find a white commander that cares about golems, or commander that cares about tokens, or +1 counters, or keywords and things like that. So, but anyway, number Jorana Chieftain, 2 and a green 2/2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay XX. When you do, distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of target elves, and it has partner. So this is good for an elf deck, because as well, you just got a lot of mana. You've just got so much mana, and a lot of the time it's very much like, well, now I have all this mana and have all these creatures, but they're all random 2/2s or 3/3s, and they're not able to get in there that easily when there's 4/4s, 5/5s, 6/6s, and 7/7s, and 8/8s, and whatever else out there in the grand scheme of things. So, and especially since they're on the ground, if they don't have trample and things like that, it's very hard for them to get in. But there are certainly strategies like proliferate and things like that that will work well with this as well, so you can easily get your counters up more and more easily. So, especially if you find things that actually care about proliferate that partner well with this, you know, you can, and care about elves too, I guess. But yeah, you've got to care about elves, and you've got to care about those sorts of things. So, just making elf tokens and making your elves bigger, I think this probably just goes into the elf deck somewhere. I don't know whether you'd run this as your commander, I'm not sure, but it could be a good commander. But I just think Azuri and cards like that are already really good, and I don't see this replacing it enough. So I think with those decks, you either want something that makes mana or something that easily takes advantage of all the mana you have. This certainly does the latter, but again, I just think Azuri's a bit better, because this is, basically 2 mana to get 1/1/1 among all your elves, basically. So not the worst, but not the best either. So it's what 2, 4, and so it's 6 mana to get +3/+3, which is a little bit more than Azuri, so it's a little bit less efficient. I mean, it is all colors, so I don't know, but still. Solurk, all ingesting, 5 and a green, 0/0. When it enters the battlefield with 5 counters on it, whenever it, I should say, I guess, or another creature we control dies, if it had a +1/+1 counter on it, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control that has a +1/+1 counter on it, and it has partner. This is pretty cool. If you're in that +1/+1 counters deck, I think, and you're worried about losing your board and things like this, just helps you protect your board, helps you, re-establish some of the stuff that you've been, like, some of the effort you've been putting into some of your creatures. Can help you move counters around from creatures if you're sacrificing them, like, so Gave would be pretty good with this. Or just janky ooze tribal, like the other oozes making your oozes bigger. And there's certainly a lot of oozes that give +1/+1 counters and whatnot, so there's room for this sort of thing somewhere, I'm sure. So there's a few slots that you can put it again. Maybe like you're just like going to be able to find a way to break this. I'm sure Gave can break this because Gave can basically break anything that says get counters. So this can certainly find a space somewhere in that deck, I'm sure. But I'm certain there's other decks that go in. I think it might go in my Traxxas deck. So if you really care about creatures with +1/+1 counters and you want to protect some of those creatures with +1/+1 counters, you know, or if you've got sack outlets, especially, you can get some of your smaller creatures that you don't really care about anymore to be sacked, and then put some of those +1/+1 counters onto bigger and better things, and then protect those bigger and better things that you actually really care about. But anyway, move on. Alright, now, color stuff. And we're going to start out with something we covered pretty well in a video a couple months ago now, or was it a month ago now? I can't remember actually, but Jeweled Lotus, the 0 mana artifact, sack it. We produce 3 mana of any one color. Spend this mana only to cast your commander. So I think the hype for this has gone down quite a bit from where it was, and all the hoopla that people were going on about and saying how busted this was. Of course, it is busted still, but again, I think people have calmed down and realised, oh yeah, it's actually not nearly that bad as what we thought. And again, like I sort of said, and a lot of people actually went into some detail of saying, well, it casts one card in your deck and it only really goes in certain metas again. And the thing is, again, it will be policed for the most part, I believe, by play groups that aren't in those metas. And even if even if you are in those metas, I still think you're probably going to be policing people that are getting out to a start, because you don't want somebody else to win. You want to win. And you've got to often work together sometimes to make sure that somebody else, doesn't get too far ahead with some of the other players at your table. But, if you want to see more of what I had to say, you can find my video, which I'll probably link here as a little thumbnail, so that you can see what I had to say there about it. Tried to do pretty evenly, but yeah, I don't have much more to say about it. I think the price has dropped quite a bit now since people have realised that this isn't as good as what people thought. Command displayed 1 mana artifact equipment. The equipped creature gets +3/+3 and protection from each colour that it's not in your commander's color identity. Equip to a commander for 3, equip generically to anything else for 5. So if you have a colorless commander, this gets protection from all colors. And if you've got a monocolored commander, it gets protection from everything but that color. And if you've got a 2-color commander, it gets protection from 3 colors. So this is pretty good, and again, it gets better when you're in less colours. So the least colours that you're in, I think the better. And again, I think realistically, you've got to care about artifacts, or you've got to care about equipment to some degree, because just getting +3/+3 and protection from every other creature of, not your commander's color identity, yeah, that's good. You could get something to be basically unblockable that way. But again, if it's on your commander, then of course perhaps it is more relevant. But again, you know, I don't know. You If you're going for that janky Voltron, well, janky, but janky Voltron beats, then maybe. But again, I think if you want to protect something, there's better ways, maybe, for the most part. But it is very strong, and certainly on a 1 or 2 or even, colorless commander, it's absurd. But again, I don't think it goes in every deck. But certainly if you've got the space for it and you care about equipment and you actually care about whatever this is going on, getting through unblocked whenever it's on the field, pretty good, like low CMC sort of style decks can run it and be probably happy with it if you're in that Boros equipment, or red or white equipment decks. I think you probably run it, or just colorless decks, because you might not have many other better options in this. I think it's fairly cheap on release right now, so if you can pick it up right now, it's probably pretty good. But I wouldn't wait too long to try to pick it up, because the price will certainly go up. Phyrexian Triniform, a 9-mana golem, 9/9. When it dies, we create 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature tokens, and it has Encore for 12, which we create 2 more copies of it. Well, we create 3 copies of it, basically. So, yeah, then we're going to get what? 3, 6, 9 3/3s after we get, 3 9/9s. So that's a lot of golems. Again, if we're in that golem tribal, or we care about golems or whatever, might be good. If we can clone this thing, it's really good. If you can get it on to mimic that, it's really good. Things like that, keep creating tokens, populate, things like that, it's really good with. Brutaclad, I actually think this goes in Brutaclad, because you just get a bunch of 3/3s, and, the 9/9s are actually tokens. So if you can Brutaclad and make all your other stuff into Phyrexian Triniform tokens, those other tokens won't go away at the end of the turn, and if they die at some point, you just get 3/3s. But when the 3/3s come in at the end, after these 9/9s have died, you've got 3 more, or 12, 6, 9, whatever it was I said, more for next turn when you go to attack. So you've just got a bunch more 9/9s then. Again, if you've got ways to keep making tokens with it, is really good. If you care about Encore, it might even be just good enough. I'm not sure, but it just has a lot of power behind it. And if you're in that the blue-black Encore commander, casting this for an Encore of 9 rather than casting it for an Encore of 12 is a lot better than than 12. So there's ways you can get around this, and I think if you can cheat it into your graveyard and things like that, and then put it out onto the battlefield, like with Duretti and things like that, it would be really good as well. Blade Griff Prototype, 5 mana, 3/2 flyer. When it deals combat damage to a player, destroy target non-land permanent of that player's choice that any one of your opponents control. So you hit somebody. I'm facing my friend Steve. Whatever. I hit Steve with my with this big fly boy. He's not that big, but this flying boy. And then I say, Steve, or I say, before I hit him, I say, Steve, do you want me to kill that, that creature over there, or that enchantment over there that's going to win James the game or whatever. And he says, yes, I don't want that on the board. And I say, would you mind if I hit you for 3? He says, no. Okay, I'm going to use this blade grip. I'm going to hit you for 3. And he says, okay, I take 3. And then we destroy that thing over there. Right. So that's what this card does. You hit somebody, you find ways to make deals with it, and things like that. It's pretty cool in that way. I like the political aspect of it, but I don't think it's very strong. I think it's just a fun sort of utility card that you sort of see me build around in a political sort of style deck. I think it's probably pretty fun and probably pretty good in that sort of style of deck. Every time you hit somebody, you can say, hey, by the way, for letting me hit you, you can blow something up that's not mine. So it's pretty good to get, curry favor with other people out there. So, Next up, lands. First is Rejuvenating Springs. This was spoiled. This is one of the 5. Is it ally coloured or enemy coloured fetch? Not fetch lands. Dual lands that are basically the battle bond lands. So there's one for each colour. So I'm not going to really go through these very much. They're all quite good. Sculptor Seating is the Boros one. And then what's the next one? Training Center is the Izzet one. And then Undergrowth Stadium is the Golgari one. And then Vault of Champion is the Orzhov one. So they're all really good. They all find a home in any decks that are, in those colours for the most part. Just auto run, just like throw it in there as another dual land to help you fix your mana. So it's really good. Next up, War Room. Taps for colours. We pay 3 mana and pay life equal to the number of colours in our commander's colour identity to draw a card. So this is really good once again in 2 or less colour decks, and it's really good in colourless as well, because again you're in no colours, so you're just paying no life to draw a card for 3, well, essentially for 4 mana, because you're having to tap this thing to as well. So it's 4 mana and 0 life in that case to draw a card, which is okay if you've got nothing else going on and you really need the extra card draw. I think the availability of this and the, the opportunity cost of just being on the land is really good. So, if you need the card draw, if you're in mono white or you're in mono red and you just struggle with card draw, as those colours tend to do, or even if you're in colours, which struggles just as much, I think, I think you'd run this and I think it'll be really good for you. Next, actually, I am talking about an uncommon, Guildless Commons, and I actually made a video about this, how it's much better than Temple of the False God. So if you want to check out that video and learn a little bit more about it, being better than that card, you can check out my video, which I'll post here somewhere again. But it enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, we return a land we control to our hand, and then it taps for 2 colorless. So it's really good. I think a lot of people should look at this card and start playing it. Yep, we'll just move on because I haven't got much more to say about it. Amarith, the Lustrous. This is the Bance legendary commander. Flying 6/6 for 3 and Bant colors, so green, white, blue. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under our control, we can look at the top card of our library. Then, if it shares a card type with the permanent that entered the battlefield, we reveal that card to everyone else, and then we put it to our hand. So, this offers some card draw. It is very slow, but it's just fine. I think this is a pretty cool dragon. If you're in Dragon Trial, well, maybe this finds its way in, as well. But it's just like a nice Bant value commander, just like you play a lot of creatures or you play a lot of permanents sort of style deck, and you just like get free value by being able to see what the top card is. With other effects like enchantments that let you look at the top, or cards that let you look at the top, or even play the top card of your library and things like that, so that then you can know what's on top, so that then you know what to play. So it offers you that semi-scry value, and it lets you also play cards off, well, get extra cards off the top, draw extra cards off the top. Archaeops Lagoon Mystic. This is the Sultai Turtle commander. So for 1 and Sultai, so black, green, blue. As long as he is tapped, other permanents enter the battlefield tapped. As long as he is untapped, permanents enter the battlefield untapped. So this is really good for us when he's untapped. He makes all of our stuff untapped if it would enter the battlefield tapped. And it's really bad for our opponents, because we're probably going to tap this in their turn, or have this tapped when it's in their turn, so all of their stuff enters tapped. It just slows other people down. So the natural way to sort of build this commander is a stacks style commander, I would think, for the most part. I don't think that I would like to play this, or would like to play against this myself, but it's kind of cool that, Simic has this, but it's kind of weird as well, because why is this not white? Because so many of the stacksing effects are in blue and white. So I don't think you even get access to that many really good stacks pieces that are out there, because most of them are in white. So I'm not sure, but maybe this is a new direction to go in. This would be kind of interesting. But again, I wouldn't play this. For me, I just don't think this has got anything that I'm interested in playing. Avrina, the Chosen Bloom. So this is the Teema Elemental Commander. So I guess, is Teema colors. So blue, green, and red for a 4/2. As you cascade, you may put a land card from among the exiled cards onto the battlefield tapped. So it just gives you a little bit of extra value when you cascade cards. Pretty cool. So it also works with lands, so that's kind of cool. So you can also sort of build this semi-landfallish sort of deck around it, as well as just like cascade value sort of style deck. So that's kind of very cool, where you can just like get cascade and landfall together. Is kind of cool. I don't know exactly which way you'd probably lean more into, just like happening to be able to play a couple extra lands per turn sort of style stuff, because you can't play more than one if you already played your land. After the last card, it doesn't actually say that, but it should say that. It doesn't say you can play extra lands, basically. So you can only play that land if you haven't already played a land for turn. But if you're able to play multiple lands per turn, then you'll just be able to keep getting this cascade value of being able to play lands. So that's pretty cool as well. Beldi, Corrupted Observer. This is the Golgari commander, 2/2 elf, so a green and a black. At the beginning of combat on each player's post-combat main phase, that player adds 2 colorless mana to their mana pool for each of our opponents who lost life this turn. So this is a group slug-ish commander, or group slug card. It incentivizes your opponents to attack your other opponents, essentially, I guess, so that they can get some mana. It also kind of fits into that Jund mana burn commander. So if you can find ways to stop people's turns and things like this, then they will, or make people change phases, then they will lose that mana, that unspent mana, and basically get mana burnt. So kind of interesting. There's a few places that you can put this, but I think you just mostly want to put it in that political deck where you're trying to incentivize players to attack each other and not attack you. Bell Baroka, Spectral Servant, 2 and red white for a star 5 Spirit Soldier. Note the CMC of each card when it's put into exile. This guy's power is equal to the greatest number of noted cards this turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of our library. We may play that card this turn. So when we exile something from the top of our card, from the top of our deck at the beginning of our upkeep, which is basically, you know, being able to draw that card, being able to play that card, because, you know, it says we can play that card. So yes, we can play lands with it. We don't have to cast it. So that's card advantage or card draw in Boros, which is good. But he also gets, you know, bigger based on whatever we exile. So if we exile big things with him, then we're making him very, very powerful. But he doesn't have any built-in evasion, so I'm thinking that you have to build around that aspect of it, where you've got to find things that will give him evasion, or things that will give your other creatures evasion, because I'm surely you're not just working on this guy. But he just goes in the Boros deck, I think, just for card advantage. Pretty good, so just, you know, slots in there for your Boros deck. You know, and he's a spirit and a soldier. It's weird that he's a spirit and a soldier, but he doesn't have flying or anything else. Or, I don't know. I don't think they could put any other abilities on it, because just putting card draw on a Boros card is actually already too much. They can't have any more than that. Gee whiz. What do you want, Boros? To actually be somewhat relevant in the game. Gee whiz. But next up, we'll move on from that. But anyway, Blim, Comedic Genius, 2 and Rakdos, so a black and a red, 4/3 flyer. When he deals combat damage to a player, that player gains control of target permanent we control. Then each player who loses life and discards cards equal to the number of permanents they control but don't own. So this is a really cool sort of Zedru sort of style commander, where you're giving away the things that you have that are bad for you, that have already sort of done something for you. So a lot of that generous gifting sort of stuff, or not generous gift, whatever's the one with the little cat on it, you know, oh, not gift something, given, whatever's the gift. Well, I can't think of the little cat. What's it called? Not something suspicious or whatever it is, but you just give people bad things. You give them your Liliana's Caress or whatever it is that says, you know, next time you must choose the thing that basically says you lose the game, or the thing that every turn it deals a bunch of damage to you equal to the number of cards that are in your hand, or things like that. Just things that, you know, mess with them, or things that say they can't play creatures and things like that. It's a very mean card, that, you know, but it's also very active, which I actually like. So it's actually like going to end the game pretty quickly, so that you can get on with your lives, not like Zedru, where you're just sitting there waiting for them to actually find their stupid combo and actually be able to win after you've had the headache of watching them just like give you all the garbage that they've got, you know, and you're just sitting there going, come on, bro, have you won yet? Come on. You know, you might as well be watching somebody just play solitaire, you know, like, it's just not very interesting, I think. Anyway, Confanor, the last EU, 3 and Abzan colours, so white, black, green, Vigilance and Reach 3/7. Whenever he or another creature we control dies, we can return up to one target creature card with lesser toughness from our graveyard to our hand. So, pretty cool. He can return stuff from our graveyard to our hand. So I think you'd throw this in like the toughness matters sort of style decks, where you can attack with your big butted boys basically, and like Doran the Siege Tower style decks, and there's a couple other cards. I really can't think of many of them off the top of my head what they're actually called, but they basically allow you to do damage equal to your toughness rather than your power. And since this card and a few other cards like this have vigilance, that also lets you play that offense and that defense. Since he has reach as well, that's really good. Since then you can just like block flyers for days, which is really good as well. So things like that are really interesting and have a lot of play to them. Next is the Mardu one, Glen Arkham Weaver. So he is a Mardu for, red, white, and black for a 2/3. Then we tap him, sacrifice an enchantment, return target enchantment card from our graveyard to the battlefield. Very interesting and very weird that Mardu has an Enchantress commander now. But I'm certain you can do weird things with this as well. Maybe curses, maybe the same sort of thing that I was talking about with Blim, where you're trying to give away bad things or whatever. Maybe Blim goes in this sort of deck. I'm not sure. It's just very weird. I'm not sure what you can exactly do with this, but it's a cool build around, and it's certainly something different. And I think again, that's what people want. People want something that's a bit different. Not just the same old, and people want to do cool, unique, different things, and just have things to build around. So, Gaznoro, Voice of Craigs. This is the Jeskai one, so 1 and a Jeskai, or blue, red, white. For a 3/3, we tap it. We choose one of the modes. So we scry X. This Chimera deals X damage to target creature, or we gain X life, and where X is the number of spells that we've cast this turn. So this is a Spell Slinger Chimera. Goes in the Jeskai Spell Slinger style deck. Scrying X, good value, I guess. Helps us set up more of our deck to hopefully get through more cards, get more gas flowing. If we're hitting too many lands, if we're not hitting enough lands, just can help us there. Dealing X damage to a target creature can get rid of some blockers or whatever. That's pretty good. Or get rid of an attacker that's maybe going to kill us. Gaining a few life, that can keep us in the game. It's pretty good, but I think that would be the mode that you choose the last. Like if you're on 4 or 5 life, oh look, well I'm just going to gain a few life just to stay in the game a bit longer. That might be alright. But anyway, interesting, but yeah, I don't know more about any of that. I don't think I don't see much more to it than that. Gore Muldark, Amphibiologist. This is the I'm about to say, but it is blue white, blue green rather. I couldn't think of it. I could not think of it. I cannot think of it. So 1 and blue green. You permanents you control have protection from salamanders. At the beginning of your end step, each player who controls the fewest creatures. Yeah. Each player. Yeah, that's weird. Sorry, I'm just rereading that because it was like each player. Hang on, wait, what? The fewest creatures creates a 4/3 blue salamander warrior creature token. So it gives people salamanders, but then you and your creatures have protection from salamanders. So really weird, commander, and kind of has its own things going on. I guess you're running this in a semi-group hug deck to a degree, or group control deck, where you're trying to give people other things that they can't basically use against you, so that then they've got to use it against their opponents. It also gives the people that are sort of behind the most on board something to work with. So that's kind of cool. Um, so yeah, it is very group huggish and does some cool, interesting things that you might want in some of those decks, but it also protects you, so interesting. Hans Eriksson, 2 and Gruul, so a red and a green, 1/4. Whenever he attacks, reveal the top card of our library. If it's a creature card, we can put that card into the battlefield tapped and attacking. Defending player or planeswalker that they control. Otherwise, put that card into your hand. But when we put a creature card into the battlefield this way, it fights Hans. So, great flavour in this card from the Great Hans run. That's finally basically got all the parts to it, I think, now. So, very cool. But again, you've got to find ways to basically either give this guy protection from everything that's going to fight him, or you've got to give him indestructible. You've got to give him ways so that he won't die from... Because you want to find big things off this. You want to find your 8/8s and 9/9s and 10/10s and whatnot off of this. Like, just getting that once every now and again and having to recast this for 2 extra mana isn't that good, and then having to be able to attack with him isn't that good. You want to be able to do this over and over again, so you want to give him things that will protect him and keep him around so that he can keep, swinging and finding things that, you can smash into your opponents with. So, quite an interesting build around, and that's what I like about a lot of these commanders. They're build arounds. If you really take the time to consider, what you're going to do with it, it might work out well. Jared Cathalion, True Heir. This is the Naya commander. So, red, green, and a white for a 3/3. When he enters the battlefield, target opponent becomes the monarch. You can't become the monarch this turn. If damage will be dealt to Jared while with the monarch, then prevent that damage. Prevent that damage and put that many +1/+1 counters on him. So he's cool with the monarch, and I was thinking that maybe you could build this in a way where you're trying to have that group slug deck or that group control deck, and you're trying to make your opponents hit each other basically. So you're incentivizing people to attack everyone else but you. I don't know whether this is a monarch deck or not, because it's kind of weird. He gives away the monarchy, but that's sort of semi part of what this kind of the story is to a degree. But he didn't really give the monarchy away; it was taken from him. But it's interesting that he cares about being the monarch. But again, I think you want to build this in a unique way. You don't really want to build this monarchy because I don't think there's enough payoffs, really, that much. Yeah, but... yeah, it's only to him, so... yeah, it only affects him if he's blocking or being blocked, I guess. So... and he's a 3/3 with no, evasion. He doesn't have trample or anything, so... just a 3/3 isn't that impressive, and again, just trying to get the monarchy and trying to keep it and trying to make him bigger. I don't know, it just seems very weird. I just think if you're just in this political control deck, it'd be much more interesting and much more viable and much easier to make that kind of work and make opponents sort of attack each other and whatnot. It'd be kind of real cool. Kawan, in Interrogant Meddler. I'm sure that's not right, but I don't know. White and a blue. This is the... no, not Orzhov, not Bant. What am I thinking? Azorius. Azorius Commander, it's a 1/3 rabbit. Tap him. Each player may draw a card. Then each player who drew a card this way gains 1 life. This is a group hug card for the most part. But, of course, you're in a deck, I think, where you're trying to maybe make this non-beneficial to your opponents in a sense where you're trying to make them draw too many cards in a sense. So you're trying to maybe mill people out, or maybe just make people have to discard basically at the end of the turn because now that they're got too many cards in hand, they have to discard. But interesting. I think it might go in the group hug decks again. But I'm not sure what else you can sort of do with this. I don't see that much of applications unless you can find more ways where things say if opponents gain life, they lose that life, or if they would draw cards, they don't draw cards, and things like that. So you basically just tapping this to draw a card and gain a life for yourself so that your opponents can't really get much more off of it. Or if they do get something off of it here and there, then they don't get their normal draw card for the turn, or they don't get a draw card for another phase. They can't draw cards out of their own turn or something like that, or whatever. They can't do anything with it. So, or it hurts them in the end somehow, or something. I don't know. You really have to build around this, or you'd really have to find something that sort of finds its way to doing something with this. But Lithal, the Blusterous Dawn, or the Boundless Dawn, sorry. 2 and green white, 2/2 lifelinker. At the beginning of the end step, if you gain life this turn, distribute that up to that many +1/+1 counters among any number of other target creatures. So we gain some life. We get that many counters among any number of creatures that we control. We gain 2 life. We can put, up to that many +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures. We gain 2 life. We can put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature. Is that right? I think that's how it works. If that's not quite right, somebody tell me that I'm wrong. But that's the way it reads to me, and what I've been told that how this actually works and whatnot. So we gain 4 life. We get 4 +1/+1 counters on any number of our creatures. So that's really good. Makes it bigger, makes it more scary, makes it attack more and more and just gain more life for us and get more counters and get bigger and get more dangerous and, just take over the game and kill people. So, you can go wide with this, and there are certain ways you can, just gain life for free, and these are good colours to be in for life gain, so, and I think you also want to care about +1/+1 counters. So there's avenues for that too. Lycia, Shroud of the Dusk. This is the Orzhov one. 2 and white and a black for a 5/5, flying and lifelink. Rather than pay 2 mana for each previous time you've cast this commander from your command zone, or cast a spell from your command zone, this game you may pay 2 life that many times instead. Whenever a player casts a spell, that player loses 2 life. So this is Orzhov, Death and Taxes style, or punishment style deck. Plus you've just got this big 5/5 lifelinker. So it's just going to gain you back the life that you lose when you do cast things, or at least some of the life that you lose when you cast things. So you're just like at a less parity than everyone else. Everyone else is like losing all this life, and you're just like sitting pretty. So if you find a few life linkers and whatnot, you can certainly squeeze this in somewhere, and you're just gonna, especially if you've got all those like Soul Sisters effects, you're just gonna get free life gain and whatnot, especially off your creatures and things like that entering the battlefield. If you're making tokens, that's also pretty good. So there's lots of ways you can take advantage of this. Neverroll, Urborg Tyrant. So 3 and Esper colours, so white, blue, black. Zombie Wizard 3/6. He has hexproof from artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. When he enters the battlefield, create a tapped 2/2 zombie creature token for each creature that died this turn. So when he dies, we may pay 1, and when we do, destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. So this is referring to Nev's disc, and this is Nevril himself. So just getting these free 2/2 zombies if we've Wrath, pretty good. It builds up our board, and the Nev's disc itself works pretty well with this. So we board wipe, and then we have all of our mana open, basically, except for maybe one. But then we cast this guy, and, now we've got a bunch of zombies. We've got a pretty good board. We can swing in with our zombies. There's certainly some combos that can be done with this, and I've heard a couple of them, where you can basically give this guy the ability to, if he would die this turn, he comes back onto the battlefield, so that then you can take advantage of his own ability, which is when he dies, you may pay 1. So if you can find ways to sack him, then you can pay 1, and since he's dying as well, he will also come back to the battlefield and re-enter and make you a whole bunch of zombies. So he'll kill everything, then make a whole bunch of zombies, basically, for 2 or 3 mana, which is really strong, and you can keep doing that, because you also, keep, I guess, making zombies eventually. If you've got double tokens and things like that, that'll increase the number of creatures that you've killed. So then you just get more zombies each time. And if you can find ways to make them bigger, then pretty strong, so that, you can find a way to win, or you can find a way to punch people, or you can find ways to sack them, or you can find ways to utilize those zombies for other effects so that you can find a way to win. But certainly, just like value town sort of stuff, I think, for the most part. Just also nice to sort of have a board wipe on your commander, I guess. I think it actually is a bit better than Child of Alara in many ways, because it's in the colours that, well, it's focused into the colours that actually want to sack things, and it also is focused into the colours that actually want to sacrifice for value to a degree, and it's also in the colours that can take advantage of wraths pretty easily as well. So it's a lot to like there. Yami's Una Trickster, 3 and blue black 1/6 flash flyer. When you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put one of those cards into your hand and the other into your graveyard. So scry to draw 1, essentially, to a degree. But, or look at the top 2 and then draw one of them, then put the other one into your graveyard. So Surveil, I guess, Surveil 2, more or less. Kind of cool. This will go in flash, blue, black flash decks. It's a fairy, it's a knight. There's a lot of tempo-y stuff that people want to do in blue black with their flying fairies and whatnot. There's a lot of stuff that sort of helps you do that sort of stuff, so there's lots of avenues for this, and I'm sure that you can find stuff to do with it. I don't know whether you're actually fairy tribal or you're just blue black, flash instant speed sort of stuff, doing stuff on other people's turns, holding up your mana till the last minute so that you can sort of do things and, take advantage of stuff. So, you've got a lot of play to this. Obeka, Brute Chronologist. This is the Grixis one. So 1 blue, black red, 3/4, you tap it. The players whose turn it is may end the turn. So this is mostly a card I think you use on yourself. You can use it politically on other players, but they have the choice of ending the turn. So unless it's beneficial to them, like if they're going to be settled the wreckaged, or if they're going to have something of theirs destroyed, or if they're going to have something of theirs stolen, whatever, things like this, or something happens on their end step, things like this that they don't really want to have happen. You can just sort of help people out with this, I guess, maybe, but mostly you want to take advantage of things that say, this happens at your end step. You get rid of this at your end step. You lose the game at your end step, or whatever. Things like that. There are all these extra turn spells and things like this. You lose the game at the end step. So then what you do is you go to the end of your turn. You respond to the trigger that says, hey, you're going to lose the game. You tap Rebecca and say, hey, I'm just going to end the turn while that's still on the stack. And then it just goes away, and then you've gotten rid of it. So then you've got an extra turn, basically for free to an essence, and, just gotten further ahead so that you can do all these weird things and whatnot, and then you can, keep going, keep doing things that benefit you by, creating tokens that would die at the end of the turn and things like that. So it's interesting to build around that sort of end step tribal sort of stuff, I guess, or what have you, triggers. So interesting. Yarlock, the Scorch Thrash. This is the Jun one, so 1 and black, red, green, 4/4 vigilance. A player losing unspent mana causes that player to lose that much life. So this is mana burn effect. You 1 mana, tap him. Each player adds Jund mana to their mana pool. So you want to play this as a mana burn commander. You want to add mana to people's mana pools at inopportune times so that it causes them to suffer mana burn damage so that you can kill people by mana burning them out. So this is an interesting commander. It's kind of cool that he has vigilance so that he can attack in as well. So just helps you get in those last few points of damage sometimes, or helps you get in those first few points of damage sometimes, what have you. Sometimes that's relevant, but also just like other effects, like, of attacking. Just, maybe I'll get in there, I don't know. That's just good, just helps you stay on defense, helps you be able to use his ability as well. So very good, interesting to build around. I'm not sure that I'll build around it, but very interesting to build around. Zara, Renegade Recruiter, 3 and blue, red, flyer, 4/3. Whenever she attacks, we look at the defending player's hand. We may take a creature card from their hand, put it onto the battlefield under our control, tapped and attacking that player or a planeswalker they control. Then we return that card to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So you can steal some really good, really spicy things with this. And of course it's a pirate, so it's all about stealing stuff. It's not very much my cup of tea, but it's just a good pirate. If you want to put it in your pirate deck, it's probably one of the best pirates you can use. And you're just hungry for really good pirates, so this just goes in your pirate deck, or maybe you can use this as your commander. I'm not 100%, but I think it's probably just better in the 99. It doesn't help out your other pirates, but it's just good on its own. Just stealing something, and even like against players like me sometimes that play these weird 0/0 creatures, you just steal one of my creatures and then you kill it. So you've just like basically killed one of my creatures, or you've just made me discard one of my cards, I guess. Maybe that's not that good, but like you're making me lower on card advantage and you're getting rid of my creatures. So that's not good for me. But again, if you're playing this, you want to pick players that actually would have things that are relevant, that you can actually get on the battlefield, or that you can clone, or that you can copy, or that you can do other things with, or even sacrifice, so for benefits and things like that, so that you can ping people even more, or just do other things with, so that you can get advantage out of them to win the game with. Abomination of Lanoir. This is the Golgari one. Elf Horror. Vigilance and Menace. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of elves we control and the number of elf cards in our graveyard. This is weird. It really cares about elves, no matter where they are, as long as they're not in exile or in our hand or in our library, I guess. But as long as they're on the battlefield or in our graveyard, this thing is much, much bigger. So this is kind of a weird deck where you're wanting to play all these elf ball kind of cards that you would normally play, but again, it sort of rewards you if you've been board wiped, so that's kind of good. It just helps you out in those circumstances where you're just like, oh, I'm sad now because my board's gone. Oh, I've got this. It's still pretty big, so I can use this to get in there with and, hopefully take out my opponents or do something or what have you. At least it's something that I can utilize in another way. Very interesting. Arami of the Dead Tide. 1 and a blue and a black. 1/4. Tap it. We exile cards from our graveyard equal to the number of opponents we have, which is often going to be 3. Target creature card in our graveyard gains encore until end of turn. Its encore cost is equal to its converted mana cost. So I was talking about this a little bit earlier with that big 9/9 dude. This is quite powerful. You exile a couple cards from your graveyard, then you get one of the better cards that's in your graveyard back, especially like that big 9/9 dude, whatever. Cards that leave behind something like tokens and whatnot, or leave behind +1/+1 counters, or draw you cards, or what have you, other effects like that. Those are the cards that you want with decks like this, so that you can get advantage out of, utilizing them from the graveyard in this way. I don't know whether you run too many cards that actually have encore on them, but you just run good cards that sort of have a good edge of the battlefield or a good dies trigger, or that you can continually make copies of or whatever, and things like that. Again, things like Mimic Vat and whatnot would be good with this to make more tokens, and if you can find ways to make clones of things, you don't want to run too many legendaries unless you're running Sakashima somewhere in this. But again, if you're running things like that, then you're just like cloning your own things again, getting more value out of their into the battlefield or their dies effects and whatnot. So, and then you're just like using your graveyard as another resource as well. So you've just got another hand. So, but this is once per turn, unless again you've got ways to untap it. But that's still feasible to a degree, but again, you do have to cast it, I believe. Yes, you have to cast it for its CMC, but still, that's pretty good, and it's pretty strong. Captain Vargas Wrath. This is the Izzet uncommon one. Whenever Captain Vargas Wrath attacks, pirates we control get +1/+1 till the end of turn for each time you've cast a commander from the command zone this game. So it helps buff up our pirates by the number of times we've cast our commander. So if our commanders died a few times, then they get even bigger. Just helps us out late game sometimes too, just giving +3/+3 to our other creatures without having to have our commander on the battlefield. So by that time, maybe our commander's a little too expensive. So hopefully we can help. This can help us get in there with our pirates, making them bigger, making them more relevant, making them more difficult to block, making them, more scary and whatnot. So there's certainly some evasive pirates, and you can get in well with giving them +3/+3, or +2/+2, or +4 or +4, things like that each turn. That's pretty good. And just like the slight downside of having to attack with this guy, but he also, gets the benefit too. So, being a 1/1 isn't that relevant because he actually gets the buff too. So he becomes a somewhat reasonable threat. He doesn't have to get in. It's the other things that you care about getting in. As long as he doesn't die, you don't really worry. Hamazar, Guardian of the Arshin, 4 and green white, 5/5. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature we control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Spells we cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature we control with a +1/+1 counter on it. So +1/+1 counters matter. We make this dude a lot cheaper with all of our +1/+1 counters stuff. And then all of our spells that we cast after this are cheaper based on how many +1/+1 counters we have on our stuff. Pretty cool, pretty interesting. You, again, just like want to be built around this, and you want to make lots of things, but it feels kind of like Win More-ish. You just like going to cast something for its non-generic mana cost, I guess, for the most part after this. It's good after your combat again, so you can be like, aha, okay, I'm gonna just attack, do all this damage, then I've still got all my creatures for the most part, or I've got most of my creatures for the most part. Then I'm just going to cast this for basically 2 mana, this for 2 mana, this for 2 mana, this for 3 mana, whatever. Get all of these things that can block, and then people are going to be like, well, shit, now what are we going to do? Because now we can't hit you because now you've got all these, blockers for cheap, basically. So be really good. And once you get all of these other things that have +1/+1 counters on it after you've attacked and things like this, and once you've doubled your +1/+1 counters with Hydra, like things like Oran Hydra and things like that and whatnot, your board's just going to be huge, and you're just going to be able to dump a lot of stuff, and you're just going to be able to kill people very quickly and very easily with this sort of thing, giving you a huge reduction cost on your things with +1 with your cards that synergize with +1/+1 counters. Imori, Celebrant of the Bounty. So 3 and green blue, 3/1 with Cascade. Spells that we cast with CMC 6 or greater have Cascade. So just extra Cascade value. I think I was talking about this guy a little bit earlier as well. Just helps you out, gets more Cascade for more of your spells. Just giving you more value on a lot of those big spells, because you want more value out of your big spells, because when you go to cast things, you want them to do something. You want to feel like you got something out of it. You don't want to feel like you cast something and then it was immediately, killed or answered or whatever, or even if it was that you got something more out of it, you got a land or you got more cards in hand or what have you, got something out of it at least, so that it was a relevant play to make. You don't want to just have cast your 10/10 or your whatever and then it dies. It's like, oh, well, that feels bad, but at least, maybe if you got something else out of it, like a mana rock or whatever, or a ramp spell or a card draw spell, you've got more cards in hand so that you can refuel and keep going. Jirori, Master of the Review, black red, for whenever 1/1. Whenever we sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on this guy. When he dies, deals damage equal to its power to any target. So it reminds me of that other black red guy that basically does this. I think he's a rare, but he's not legendary. So that's a little bit difference there. But he also gets bigger when he attacks. So there's that argument. Excuse me, had to readjust. But there's that argument to say that he's a bit better. He gets bigger more naturally. Um, and in this way, you've got to sacrifice things. But this is a much safer way of doing that because you don't have to get into combat and whatnot. And then when you're ready to like kill somebody, you just sack this guy and like fling it at somebody's face, or you know, especially if you do have fling, um, you know, then you can basically do double damage. You can do one lot of damage to one player, one lot of damage to another player, or you can just focus on one player and just like basically take them right out of the game. Very powerful in those sacrifice Corvold style decks. Um, give you a lot of value. Kangi Sky Warden, 3 blue white, 3/3 vigilance flyer. Whenever he attacks, attacking creatures with flying gets +2/+0 until end of turn. When he blocks, blocking creatures with flying get +0/+2 until end of turn. So just helps out your flyers, has vigilance, can do that whole role of, you know, again, attacking and protecting. So if you've got a whole bunch of vigilance flyers as well around him, they can all really protect you. They get in for a lot more damage. They defend for a lot more. And, you know, you just set up into a really good position with things like this. So just blue-white flyers, you know, probably goes into the 99. It might even go into the command zone of a few of those decks because there's not that many really great blue-white flyers commanders. I mean, there's a couple, but there's not that many really good ones. Reserve Master Smith Boros, so white and a red, 2/2. Whenever a creature you control that's equipped or enchanted or equipped attacks, that creature gains double strike until end of turn. So just giving your equipped / enchanted creatures double strike when they attack, just making them more dangerous. Very cool, very powerful, can do a lot in those Boros equipment stroke aura decks. So, you know, can find a home there and help you out getting through more damage more quickly. It's basically an Odric in a way, giving, you know, more of your creatures more abilities, so that, you know, you can keep relevant things together, and it just hurts blocks because of double strike, and it hurts, you know, attacks, you know, again. Oh, or is it attacking into you? No, when you're attacking, that's all. But, you know, hurts blocks at least, but that's really good. It helps you get in early damage. Thalassy, Reverend Medium, 3 and Orzhov, so a white and a black, 3/4. At the beginning of each end step, create X11 spirit creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of tokens that you created this turn. So this cares about making tokens. So if we can make a lot of tokens during our own turn, or Steve's turn, or Alice's turn, or whatever, that's really good. We can keep making these 1/1 flying spirits so that we can keep, you know, punching in at our opponents with these janky flyers. We can also use them for sack fodder. We can also use them for other effects and whatnot, so that we can gain advantage of them. Everything that you're trying to do is always trying to figure out a way that you can gain advantage off of cards that you're playing, because you don't want to be sitting there just being like, oh, well, I have nothing to do with what I'm doing, you know, like what's the point of me doing anything with what I'm doing, you know, type thing. You want to be gaining an advantage, you want to be getting ahead, you want to be able to, you know, be able to win with this somehow. Tayara, the Bear Claw, or Bear Claw, 1 and red green, 2/2. Whenever she attacks, she gets +1 +X until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among other creatures we control. So it doesn't have trample or anything, but there's certainly ways we can give her trample. But kind of cool. She makes herself bigger, equal to the biggest thing that's on our board. So if we have Golters and things like that, then just getting plus 12, plus 14, plus a 14, 14, commander potentially, and if we can find something that's even bigger than that. I think the biggest thing that we could probably fit into this deck's like 16 power, maybe 18 power now, I'm not sure. But, again, 20 damage-ish, and we can easily get commander damage with this if we're, can find ways to give it trample. Pretty strong, but again, I think I would prefer something that gives the rest of our board or something else on our board bigger advantage. But this is an uncommon, and it might just find its way into your deck somewhere and give you some good benefits on your attacks, just making another big beaty attacker. Once you've got a 6/6 and this is getting +6/6, it's an 8/8 or whatever. Even if you've got a 4/4, you've got another 6/6, so that's pretty good as well. So I can see some space for this. But that is pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is, again, as I said, the last one. And if you would like to help us out, you can go ahead, go onto our Patreon, go check it out over there, and give us some love over there. I think I accidentally said somewhere that the bottom tier was $2, but it's actually $3. That was my stuff up, but I've put the graphic up there now so that you can actually see exactly what all the price tiers are now, instead of just seeing that little thing that says please support us on Patreon. So now you can see what all the tiers are about. I would like to get some artwork done for the tiers. I would like to do more stuff for the channel. I would like to do more stuff for you guys. So help us out. Help me present things for your enjoyment and your interest, and hopefully you have enjoyed this video, as I say, and I hope to see you again in another video. But thanks so much, and if you have enjoyed, please do help us out. Like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, donate on Patreon if you can, and yep, hope to see you again in another video.